Let's start with the context analysis of the Jones Law. The catalyst that led to the writing of the law started when the US had the intent to grant the Philippines independence as soon as a stable government was established between the Philippines. The ultimate goal of the Philippines to gain independence was the factor that led to the law being made. As 26th US President Theodore Roosevelt said in 1901, "We hope to do for them what has never been done for any people of the tropics, to make them fit for self-government after the fashion of really free nations." The public opinion of the American people also helped in the making of the law, as the public sees the Philippines as a loss of money, as maintaining it does not bring any profit to the US anymore. Roosevelt concluded in 1907 that the US shall be prepared for giving the Philippines independence soon. In 1912, Wilson, who was running for election to be president, said that the US should be prepared to lose the Philippines as its independence is nearing. Before the start of 1912 election, US House Committee on Insular Affairs Chairman William Jones attempted to launch a bill that set a fixed date for Philippine independence. Jones had decided to delay the launching of his bill, which led to Manuel L. Quezon, one of the Philippines' resident commissioners to the U.S. House of Representatives, to draft the first of two Jones bills. He then drafted the second Jones bill in early 1914. After the election of Wilson as the 28th United States President, President Wilson had informed Quezon of his hostility to any fixed timetable for independence, and Quezon believed that the draft bill contained enough flexibility to make Wilson satisfied. The Jones bill passed the House in October 1913 and went to the Senate, that was backed by Harrison, Bill Secretary for Lindsey Garrison, and the President of the United States, Wilson, at that time. The final version of the bill was signed into U.S. law by President Wilson on August 29, 1916. Congressman William Jones authored the bill, which replaced the Philippine Organic Act of 1902.
Jones Law of 1916, also known as the Philippine Autonomy Act, is a law passed by the United States Congress, which intends to lead and provide guidance to the Filipino people, announcing that they can finally have the sovereignty over the Philippine Islands as soon as they establish a stable government. Based on its preamble, this law focuses on granting the Philippine Islands independence and the Filipino people the power to run their country. This law contains a total of 31 sections, and each of them has their own categories. Sections 4, 7, 8, 12 to 14, 16 to 18, 20 to 26, and 28 to 30 focuses on how the Filipino government should be organized. This was one of the most significant sections of the Jones Act, which discusses the replacement of the Philippine Commission. The 24 members constitute the House of the Representatives. This continuously organized the process of election to appointing representatives per district, as well as senators. In line with this, lawmaking procedures were also established, such as the Legislative Journal, veto power, appropriations, report of laws to the Governor General, and revisal of former appropriations.
In addition to what Mr. Rebolata mentioned, Sections 3, 6, 9, 10, 19, and 27 have similarities regarding some of its contexts, and were also significant in a way that it talks about specific laws and duties that the citizens should follow as they stay in the country. Also, these sections were attributed to specific acts pertaining to business, salaries, as well as the power and responsibilities that each Governor General should abide by. This is essential to maintain the peace and order of the country, especially since the government is new. Another highlight of this law can be found on Section 3, Bill of Rights. This section guarantees civil rights and liberties to the citizens, such as freedom of speech, press, and religion. This was probably the most important political achievement in establishing the relationship of the individuals and the Senate. The Bill of Rights was also the reason why there is somehow justice protecting the people from political, social, and legal abuses. Nowadays, this has become very crucial since the citizens are the most important component of a country, and without them, the essence of creating a government will be for nothing. Lastly, sections 1, 2, 5, 11, and 15 generally talks about the literal Philippine nation of the country. It is stated in those sections that the Philippines shall be used in all acts, as well as the provision that all inhabitants of the Philippine island and their children born subsequent thereto shall be deemed and held to be citizens of the Philippines.
Through the Jones Act, or Philippine Autonomy Act of 1916, the Senate of the Philippines was created from the former Philippine Commission. It is also one of the laws that laid down the future independence of the Philippines by creating the conditions such as elections in the country for a stable and independent government. Enactment of Jones Law comes to a separation of power between the executive and the legislative branch of government. The Governor General could no longer be a legislature member because he already has the highest authority. Before 1916, the Governor General also chaired the Philippine Commission, the equivalent of the legislature. The law divided the commission into two houses. The upper house became the Senate, and the lower house became the House of Representatives, and gave them powers such as creating and dissolving departments under the executive and appointing or removing heads of such departments. Filipinos have been given the power to run the country's legislature through elections. Senate members represent 12 districts. As a result, 22 senators will be elected from 11 districts with 6-year terms. The significance of Jones Law to the present time informs contemporary citizens about the origin of the Philippine laws and type of government today. In addition, the Jones Law informs the Filipino citizens on their rights to vote in order to have authority over the government of the Philippines.
As the Jones Act of 1916 leads the Philippines to independence, some of these records observed partialities, contradictions, and shortcomings. The bias here is that the law guarantees that a stable government can only come until it can't be established, and gives the government of the United States the authority to decide whether the stable government is reached. Thus, the US government still has the power to say whether its senators and co-political staff will support and self-govern the Philippine government. Another shortcoming of the document is the President's ability. Without our government's permission, the President can use our islands for military purposes. With that, the Governor General of the Philippines has the authority to compel you to perform extra tasks and responsibilities and report it to the US President. It is under the jurisdiction of the United States Executive Branch. The US President is therefore empowered to authorize or condemn a law with respect to creating legislation. As the President of the United States gives his approval, he signs and it is a law. When the Government General does not accept the proposal, it shall be returned and thereby declared and no law shall be enacted. Because if any law or joint decision is not returned, it shall become a law as if it were signed by the Governor General in the 20 days after its presentation. Even as a result of adjournment, the legislature shall become a law until the Government General enacts it within 30 days after an adjournment, unless it prevents its return. Furthermore, provided that within 6 months of its inception and application for consideration, the President of the United States approve or disapprove of an act presented to him under the terms of this clause, and that the act, if not authorized within the same period as if it had been approved in separate proceedings.